Well, Mr. Mayor, you seem to trying to rebrand yourself as a champion of free speech, but in the 2 years that you've been mayor, you've introduced new guidelines in TfL advertising which will ban an advertisement like that of Protein World, which simply has on it a picture of a woman in a bikini. And you've introduced guidelines to TfL staff to ban them from using the highly offensive phrase, ladies and gentlemen. And you've also introduced new guidance to TfL staff to stop them from commemorating historical British events like the Battle of Rorke's Drift, which of course was immortalised by Michael Caine in the film Zulu. And when I asked you about that in May, you said that the staff at Dollis Hill were ill-judged, simply to say, on this day in history, the Battle of Rorke's Drift happened. So the idea that you're against censorship is brazenly ridiculous, isn't it, Mr. Mayor?
Let me deal with each of those points in turn, Chair. So I'm surprised you don't realise this, but the freedom to protest and the freedom of speech is a bit different from advertising on the underground. But even the right to free protest has limitations. So, for example, if there are concerns around national security, your right to free speech can be limited. If, for example, there is issues around child pornography, inverted commas, your limitations are there for free speech. For example, if the laws of defamation are breached, there are limitations on free speech. I'm really happy to give you a tutelage on free speech.
I don't think I need any tutelage from you, Mr.
Article 10 of Article 10. Well, you asked the question. Article 10 of the Human Rights Act is quite clear about the limitations on free speech. The US Convention, which you claim to know well, the first article talks about the importance of free speech and why it's important. So I'm surprised as somebody who claims to be an expert on free speech, you aren't aware in certain circumstances it's right and proper. In a democracy, we have curtailment. So, for example, you couldn't go into a cinema, a busy cinema, and shout the word fire. It's a limitation on your free speech because of what it would lead to. And it would lead to mass panic.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
and lead to all sorts of issues. That's why it's really important.
You're very good at dodging the question that I put to you beforehand, which was about what's happened on TfL. Will you allow TfL staff to use the phrase ladies and gentlemen in future?
Well, what's really important is to understand the context of the protest in Parliament Square and why there was the protest in Parliament Square. It seems to me that you're conflating a number of different issues. The right to protest, which I think 250,000 people expressed on Friday, and the limitations you want to bring upon them because of hurt feelings to somebody you idolise. Now, I don't mind you idolising him. What's important, though, is to realise that we must ensure that British citizens and others can express their right to protest.
Mr. Mayor, you use the word idolise. I mean, certainly that's a childish word, Mr. Mayor. But
what word would you use?
Obviously, President Trump is on course to be one of the greatest presidents. He has successfully done a I mean, as you will admit, Mr. Mayor, he's successfully improve relations with North Korea in a way that no other president or head of state could ever imagine. But this blimp that you've allowed to fly in London, it is the most grotesque insult to a sitting president of the United States in history. It would be inconceivable that a mayor of an American city such as New York or Washington would allow such a balloon or blimp to fly of our head of state. And if that happens, we would rightly say that this is an insult not just to the head of state, but the whole country. Will you admit, Mr. Mayor, that this is a gross insult to the President of the United States, and it brings shame and embarrassment upon our city?
Time is up. We will never know what the Mayor thinks about that.
Chair, I think you can guess.
I can guess.